There's a number in your head right now, a number you believe you deserve to earn. You didn't choose it. And if you've ever wondered why that promotion didn't feel as good as you thought it would, or why earning twice as much as your parents somehow still doesn't feel like enough, you're about to understand something that most people never realize about their own minds. In the next 48 minutes, you'll discover exactly why your brain is programmed to move the goalposts every time you reach a financial milestone. You'll understand the invisible forces that have been shaping your relationship with money since before you could even count. And more importantly, you'll learn how to finally step off the treadmill of never feeling rich enough. But first, I need to tell you about a conversation that happens in millions of households every single day. Whether you're fully focused right now, or simply letting this play in the background while you work, rest, or drift to sleep, your subconscious mind is listening. The gentle frequencies woven into this audio are designed to quietly reprogram your relationship with money and abundance. So there's no need to concentrate. Just relax. Let the words and frequencies do their work. Your mind will absorb what it needs. Picture a 7-year-old sitting at a kitchen table, overhearing her parents discuss money. They're not fighting, exactly, but there's tension in their voices. Words like "we can't afford that," and "money doesn't grow on trees" float through the air like smoke, settling into the child's developing understanding of how the world works. She doesn't realize it yet, but in that moment, neural pathways are forming. Associations between money and stress, between wanting things and feeling guilty, between having enough and somehow still being afraid. This child will grow up to earn a 6-figure salary. She will buy a house, take vacations, build a substantial savings account. And yet, 30 years later, she'll still feel that familiar tightness in her chest when she thinks about money. She'll still hear echoes of "we can't afford that" even when her bank balance says otherwise. This is what psychologists call your financial blueprint, and it's far more powerful than your actual financial situation. Most people assume that feeling wealthy is simply a matter of having enough money. Reach a certain income level, accumulate a certain amount in savings, and the anxiety will disappear. The constant mental calculations will stop. The feeling of not quite enough will finally fade. But here's what researchers have discovered: this almost never happens. In fact, studies show that people who earn 3 times the median income are only marginally happier than those earning the median itself. Lottery winners, after an initial spike of euphoria, typically return to their baseline level of life satisfaction within 18 months. And perhaps most telling of all, surveys consistently show that regardless of income level, people believe they need about 20% more to feel truly secure. Always 20% more. This isn't a character flaw. It's not a lack of gratitude or an inability to appreciate what you have. It's the result of specific psychological mechanisms that evolved to keep our ancestors alive in environments of genuine scarcity. But in our modern world of relative abundance, these same mechanisms have become a prison: the hedonic treadmill. Let's start with the most fundamental reason why earning more money doesn't make you feel rich. Your brain is designed to adapt. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, and it's one of the most robust findings in happiness research. Simply put, we have a remarkable ability to adjust to positive changes in our circumstances, returning to a baseline level of satisfaction even when our objective situation has dramatically improved. Think about the last time you got a significant raise. For the first few weeks, maybe even months, you probably felt genuinely excited. You might have calculated how much extra you'd have each month. Imagined the things you could finally afford, felt a sense of progress and achievement. But if you're honest, that feeling didn't last. Within a few months, the new income level began to feel normal. The extra money got absorbed into your regular expenses. What once felt like abundance became simply your new baseline. This isn't because you're ungrateful. or because the money doesn't matter. It's because your brain is incredibly efficient at establishing new reference points. Here's how it works. Every positive experience triggers the release of dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. But dopamine isn't actually about enjoying what you have. It's about anticipating what you might get. Once you receive the reward, dopamine levels drop back to baseline, and your brain begins scanning for the next potential source of satisfaction. This system served our ancestors well. In environments where resources were genuinely scarce, the drive to constantly seek more food, better shelter, or safer territory was essential for survival. Those who were easily satisfied with enough were less likely to prepare for future challenges. But in our modern context, this same mechanism creates what researchers call the hedonic treadmill. We're constantly running toward the next level of income, the next purchase, the next achievement, believing it will finally provide lasting satisfaction. But each time we reach our goal, the treadmill speeds up, and we find ourselves no closer to feeling truly wealthy than when we started. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, spent decades studying this phenomenon. His research revealed something fascinating. Beyond meeting basic needs, additional income has diminishing returns on happiness. But more importantly, he discovered that our satisfaction isn't determined by our absolute level of wealth, but by how our situation compares to our expectations and reference points. This is why a person earning $60,000 might feel rich if they grew up in poverty, while someone earning $200,000 might feel financially stressed if they're surrounded by people earning more. Your sense of wealth isn't about the number in your bank account. It's about the story your brain tells about that number. And here's where it gets really interesting. The story changes every time your circumstances improve. When you earned $30,000, you might have thought, if I could just make $50,000, I'd feel secure. When you reached $50,000, the target moved to $75,000, then $100,000, then $150,000. Each time, the goal felt reasonable, achievable, and like it would finally be enough. But each time, reaching it simply revealed a new horizon of not quite enough. This isn't a personal failing. It's not evidence that you're greedy or that you lack perspective. It's simply how human psychology works when it encounters abundance without understanding its own mechanisms. The hedonic treadmill explains why celebrities and professional athletes, despite earning millions, often struggle with the same feelings of financial insecurity as everyone else. Their reference points have simply shifted. Their peer group consists of other people earning millions. Their lifestyle expenses have expanded to match their income. And their brains continue to scan for threats to their security, just as they always have. But understanding this mechanism is the first step towards stepping off the treadmill, the comparison trap. While hedonic adaptation explains why we adjust to our own improving circumstances, there's another psychological force at work that's even more powerful. Our tendency to measure our wealth, not in absolute terms, but relative to others. Humans are fundamentally social creatures. For most of our evolutionary history, our survival depended on our position within the group. Being cast out meant almost certain death. As a result, we developed incredibly sophisticated mechanisms for tracking our relative status. This shows up in modern life as what researchers call social comparison theory. We don't evaluate our financial situation in isolation. Instead, we constantly, often unconsciously, compare ourselves to those around us. And here's the crucial insight. Our reference group determines our sense of wealth far more than our actual income. Consider this study. Researchers surveyed people across different income levels, asking them to rate their financial satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10. They found that a teacher earning $50,000 in a small Midwestern town often rated their satisfaction higher than a lawyer earning $150,000 in Manhattan. The teacher's reference group consisted of other teachers, retail workers, and local business owners. In that context, $50,000 felt comfortable, even abundant. The lawyers' reference group consisted of other lawyers, doctors, and finance professionals. In that context, 150,000 felt middle class at best. Neither assessment was objectively correct. They were both true within their respective contexts. This relative nature of wealth perception creates what I call the comparison trap. The more successful you become, the more likely you are to find yourself surrounded by other successful people. Your reference group shifts upward and suddenly your achievements feel ordinary. You move from comparing yourself to your college friends to comparing yourself to your colleagues, then to your industry peers, then to the most successful people in your field. Each shift in reference group resets your sense of where you stand financially. Social media has made this trap even more insidious. We're now exposed to curated highlights from people across the globe, many of whom we'll never meet, but who somehow become part of our reference group. We see vacation photos from people we barely know, luxury purchases from influencers we follow, and lifestyle content from entrepreneurs who may or may not be as wealthy as they appear. Our brains, which evolved to track the status of maybe 50 to 100 people in our immediate tribe, are now trying to process social comparison data from thousands of sources. The result is a constant, low-level sense that everyone else is doing better than we are. This is compounded by what psychologists call the fundamental attribution error. When we observe other people's success, we tend to attribute it to their circumstances, luck, or advantages we assume they have. When we look at our own situation, we're acutely aware of all the challenges, setbacks, and limitations we face. So we compare our behind-the-scenes reality to other people's highlight reels, and inevitably feel like we're falling short. The comparison trap is particularly cruel because it's self-reinforcing. The more successful you become, the more successful people you encounter. Your peer group continuously upgrades, which means your sense of relative position can actually decline even as your absolute wealth increases. This explains why many high earners report feeling middle class. A surgeon earning $400,000 might feel financially average if most of their friends are other doctors, lawyers, and business owners earning similar amounts. They're not delusional or ungrateful. They're simply human beings whose brains are doing exactly what human brains evolved to do: track relative position within the group. But here's what's fascinating. Awareness of this mechanism can begin to free you from it. When you understand that your sense of wealth is largely determined by comparison, you can begin to consciously choose your reference points. Instead of automatically comparing yourself to the most successful people in your field, you might occasionally consider how your situation compares to previous generations, to global averages, or to your own past self. This isn't about settling for less or lacking ambition. It's about recognizing that your sense of financial well-being is as much about psychology as it is about actual money. The psychology of enough. Deep within your psyche lies a number. Not just the amount you think you need to earn, but the amount you believe you deserve to have. Psychologists call this your financial set point, and it's one of the most powerful forces shaping your relationship with money. Your financial set point was formed through thousands of small interactions during your formative years. The neighborhood you grew up in, the conversations your parents had about money, the lifestyle you observed as normal, the messages you absorbed about what people like you could reasonably expect to achieve. These early experiences created what cognitive scientists call schemas, mental frameworks that help you organize and interpret information. Your money schema includes beliefs about how much wealth is appropriate for someone with your background, education, and circumstances. And here's the crucial insight. When your actual financial situation exceeds your internal set point, you experience psychological discomfort. Your brain interprets this as an error that needs to be corrected. This is why lottery winners often end up bankrupt within a few years. It's not just poor financial planning, though that plays a role. It's that their sudden wealth conflicts with their deep-seated beliefs about what they deserve to have. Their financial set point was calibrated for their previous circumstances, and the windfall feels foreign, unearned, somehow not really theirs. So they unconsciously find ways to return to their comfort zone. They make risky investments, overspend on luxury items, lend money to friends and family, or simply fail to manage their new wealth effectively. Their behavior aligns their external reality with their internal set point. But this mechanism works in reverse as well. When your financial situation falls below your set point, you experience a different kind of discomfort that motivates you to take action. You work harder, seek new opportunities, make sacrifices to restore your sense of financial equilibrium. This is why people from wealthy families often seem to effortlessly maintain or exceed their parents' level of success. It's not just about inherited advantages, though those certainly matter. It's that their financial set point was calibrated to expect wealth. Anything less feels unnatural, uncomfortable, wrong. Your financial set point operates largely below the level of conscious awareness, but it influences every money decision you make. It determines what feels like a reasonable price to pay for things, what level of risk feels acceptable, what kinds of financial goals seem realistic versus impossible. Most importantly, it determines what enough feels like. Here's an exercise that might reveal your own set point. Imagine someone offered you 10 times your current net worth, no strings attached. How does that feel? Exciting? Overwhelming? Somehow wrong? Now imagine they offered you 100 times your current net worth. For most people, this amount triggers a different response. It feels too large, too far outside their sense of what they could reasonably handle or deserve. That emotional response is your financial set point asserting itself. The challenge is that set points can be remarkably resistant to change, even when your circumstances improve dramatically. You might earn twice as much as your parents ever did, but if your set point was formed in their financial context, you'll continue to feel like you should be satisfied with less than you actually have. This creates an internal conflict. Part of you wants to enjoy and appreciate your success, while another part whispers that you're being greedy, that you should be grateful for what you have, that people like you don't really need more. Understanding your financial set point is crucial because it helps explain why traditional financial advice often fails. Most money advice focuses on external strategies, budgeting, investing, earning more. But if your internal set point is misaligned with your goals, you'll unconsciously sabotage your own efforts. You might procrastinate on important financial decisions, make conservative choices that limit your growth, or feel guilty about success in ways that prevent you from fully capitalizing on opportunities. But set points can be adjusted. It requires conscious effort and often feels uncomfortable, like stretching a muscle that's been tight for years. But it's possible to gradually expand your sense of what you deserve to have and what feels like enough. The process begins with awareness. Notice when you feel guilty about spending money on yourself, even when you can afford it. Notice when you automatically assume that certain opportunities are not for people like you. Notice when you feel uncomfortable with your own success. These feelings aren't character flaws. They're signals that your external reality is bumping up against your internal set point. The goal isn't to eliminate all financial caution or to become recklessly ambitious. It's to ensure that your sense of what's possible and what you deserve is based on conscious choice rather than unconscious programming from your past. Lifestyle inflation and the moving target. There's a peculiar mathematics to human desire. As income increases, expenses don't just rise proportionally, they often rise faster than income itself. This phenomenon, known as lifestyle inflation, is one of the primary reasons why earning more money doesn't automatically translate to feeling wealthy. The mechanism is deceptively simple. When you receive a raise or bonus, you initially experience it as extra money. But within a surprisingly short time, that extra money gets absorbed into your regular spending patterns. What once felt like luxuries become necessities. Your standard of living adjusts upward to match your new income level. This isn't necessarily problematic in itself. There's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor or improving your quality of life as your income grows. The issue arises when lifestyle inflation happens unconsciously, automatically, without deliberate choice. Here's how it typically unfolds. You get a promotion that increases your monthly income by, say, $1,500. Initially, this feels like a substantial windfall. You might put some into savings, pay down debt, or simply enjoy having more breathing room in your budget. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, your spending begins to expand. You upgrade your phone plan, eat out more frequently, shop at slightly more expensive stores. You move to a nicer apartment or buy a newer car. None of these individual decisions feels significant, but collectively, they absorb most or all of your increased income. Within 6 months to a year, your new income level feels normal. The extra $1,500 has disappeared into your lifestyle, and you're left with roughly the same level of financial stress you had before the promotion. This is why people often say things like, "I don't know where all the money goes," or "I earn twice what I did 5 years ago, but I don't feel any richer." Lifestyle inflation is particularly insidious because it's often driven by social and psychological pressures rather than genuine needs or desires. As your income increases, you're likely to find yourself in social situations with people who have similar or higher incomes. Their spending patterns become your new reference point for what's normal. If your colleagues regularly eat lunch at restaurants that cost $25 per meal, brown bagging it begins to feel cheap or antisocial. If your friends take expensive vacations, your previous idea of a reasonable trip starts to seem inadequate. If your neighbors drive luxury cars, your reliable but modest vehicle might start to feel embarrassing. These social pressures are reinforced by what marketers call lifestyle creep. As your income rises, you become a target for more expensive products and services. The advertisements you see, the catalogs you receive, the recommendations algorithms show you, all begin to reflect your new income bracket. You're subtly encouraged to see yourself as someone who deserves better things, who has earned the right to upgrade their lifestyle, who would be foolish not to enjoy their success. The psychological appeal of lifestyle inflation is that it provides a tangible way to experience your increased earning power. Unlike money sitting in a savings account, lifestyle upgrades are visible and experiential. They signal to yourself and others that you've achieved something meaningful. But there's a hidden cost to this approach. It locks you into a higher level of expenses, which means you need to maintain your current income level just to feel financially stable. Your sense of security becomes dependent on continuing to earn at your peak level, which creates pressure and anxiety that can persist even when you're objectively doing well. This is why many high earners report feeling financially trapped, despite having incomes that would have seemed impossibly luxurious to their younger selves. They've built lifestyles that require their full income to maintain, leaving little room for financial flexibility or peace of mind. The antidote to unconscious lifestyle inflation isn't to live like a monk or to deny yourself all pleasures. It's to make conscious choices about where and how you upgrade your lifestyle as your income grows. Some people find it helpful to automate a percentage of any income increase directly into savings before they have a chance to spend it. Others deliberately maintain certain aspects of their lifestyle at previous levels, even as they selectively upgrade in areas that genuinely matter to them. The key is awareness. When you understand how lifestyle inflation works, you can make intentional decisions about which upgrades truly enhance your life and which ones simply absorb your increased income without providing proportional satisfaction. The wealth perception paradox. Perhaps the most counterintuitive aspect of wealth psychology is this: the behaviors and mindsets that help you accumulate money are often the opposite of those that help you feel wealthy. Building wealth typically requires delayed gratification, careful spending, and a constant awareness of financial trade-offs. You save rather than spend, invest for the future rather than enjoy the present, and maintain a healthy skepticism about your financial security, even when things are going well. These habits serve you well in accumulating assets, but they can also create a psychological pattern where you never quite give yourself permission to feel wealthy, no matter how much you actually have. This creates what I call the wealth perception paradox. The very mindset that makes you good at building wealth can prevent you from ever feeling wealthy. Consider the millionaire who still clips coupons, not because they need to, but because frugality has become so deeply ingrained in their identity that they can't imagine living any other way. Or the successful entrepreneur who lies awake at night, worrying about money despite having more than they could spend in several lifetimes. These aren't character flaws or signs of mental illness. They're the natural result of maintaining a scarcity mindset long after scarcity has ceased to be a genuine threat. The scarcity mindset served these individuals well during their wealth-building phase. It motivated them to work hard, save diligently, and make smart financial decisions. But like any tool, it can become counterproductive when applied in the wrong context. There's a time to build wealth and a time to enjoy wealth. The challenge is that most people never consciously make the transition from one phase to the other. This is compounded by what psychologists call the planning fallacy. We tend to underestimate how long it will take to reach our goals and overestimate how satisfied we'll feel once we achieve them. So we keep moving the goalposts, telling ourselves that we'll relax and enjoy our wealth once we reach the next milestone. But that milestone, once achieved, reveals new uncertainties and new goals. The retirement account that seemed like it would provide ultimate security now feels insufficient given inflation concerns. The emergency fund that once felt adequate now seems too small given new potential risks you've become aware of. The wealth perception paradox is particularly pronounced among people who grew up with financial insecurity. Having experienced genuine scarcity, they develop sophisticated mental models for identifying and preparing for financial threats. These models continue running in the background, even when their circumstances have fundamentally changed. It's like having a smoke detector that's so sensitive it goes off when you toast bread. The device is working perfectly. It's designed to detect even the smallest threat, but it's no longer calibrated for your current environment. Breaking free from the wealth perception paradox requires a fundamental shift in how you think about money and security. Instead of asking, "Do I have enough to handle any possible future scenario?" you might ask, "Do I have enough to handle reasonably likely scenarios while still enjoying my life today?" This isn't about becoming reckless or abandoning financial prudence. It's about recalibrating your risk assessment to match your current reality rather than your past fears. One helpful framework is to think in terms of enough for what. Enough for basic security looks different from enough for comfort, which looks different from enough for luxury, which looks different from enough for legacy. Most people have a vague sense that they want enough money, but they've never clearly defined what enough means in practical terms. This ambiguity makes it impossible to recognize when you've actually achieved sufficiency. The paradox resolves when you can hold two seemingly contradictory truths simultaneously. You can be prudent about your financial future while also being generous with yourself in the present. You can maintain healthy financial habits while also acknowledging that you've achieved a level of security that allows for some relaxation of those habits. The goal isn't to spend every dollar you have or to stop thinking about the future. It's to develop the psychological flexibility to adjust your relationship with money as your circumstances change. Rewriting your money story. Every person carries within them a story about money. This story, formed through years of experience and observation, shapes every financial decision they make. It determines what feels possible, what feels safe, and what feels like enough. For most people, this story was written by someone else. Parents, teachers, peers, society, media, all contributed chapters to your money narrative without your conscious consent. And because these stories operate largely below the level of awareness, they continue to influence your behavior long after the circumstances that created them have changed. Your money story includes beliefs about what you deserve, what's possible for someone with your background, what kinds of financial goals are realistic versus fantastical. It includes emotional associations between money and security, money and stress, money and identity. These stories feel like truth because they've been reinforced through repetition and experience. But they're actually just one possible interpretation of your financial reality. The first step in rewriting your money story is becoming aware of the current narrative. What do you believe about money? What emotions arise when you think about your financial future? What assumptions do you make about what's possible for you? Many people discover that their money story is actually quite pessimistic. They assume that financial security is fragile, that setbacks are inevitable, that people like them don't really get to be wealthy. These beliefs create a self-fulfilling prophecy, leading to conservative choices that limit growth and opportunity. Others discover that their money story is built around external validation. They believe that their worth is determined by their net worth, that financial success is the primary measure of life success, that they need to achieve certain monetary milestones to feel good about themselves. This type of story can drive impressive financial achievement, but it rarely leads to satisfaction. No matter how much they accumulate, it never feels like enough because the underlying need for validation is infinite. Still, others find that their money story is rooted in fear. They believe that financial disaster is always just around the corner, that they can't trust their own judgment with money, that the safest approach is to minimize risk, even if it means minimizing opportunity. These stories often develop from childhood experiences of financial instability or from absorbing their parents' money anxieties. The fear-based approach can provide a sense of control, but it also creates a prison of perpetual worry. The beautiful thing about stories is that they can be rewritten. Just as you might revise a novel to improve the plot or develop the characters more fully, you can consciously craft a new narrative about your relationship with money. This doesn't mean denying reality or engaging in wishful thinking. It means choosing a story that serves your current goals and circumstances rather than one that was imposed by your past experiences. A healthy money story might include elements like, I am capable of making good financial decisions. I deserve to enjoy the fruits of my labor. I can be both prudent and generous. My worth as a person isn't determined by my net worth. I can handle financial challenges that arise. I am worthy of abundance. These aren't affirmations or positive thinking platitudes. They're conscious choices about how to interpret your financial reality. Rewriting your money story is an ongoing process, not a one-time event. Old patterns of thinking have deep neural pathways, and they don't disappear overnight. But with consistent effort, you can gradually shift from a story that limits you to one that empowers you. The process often feels uncomfortable at first. Your old story feels familiar and safe, even if it's not serving you well. The new story might feel foreign or even fraudulent initially. This is normal. You're not just changing your thoughts, you're changing your identity. And identity change always involves a period of uncertainty and adjustment. But as you consistently choose thoughts and behaviors that align with your new money story, something remarkable happens. The new narrative begins to feel natural. Your financial decisions become easier because they're guided by clear, conscious values rather than unconscious fears. Most importantly, you begin to experience wealth, not just as a number in your bank account, but as a state of being. You feel wealthy because you've chosen to see yourself as someone who deserves abundance, who can handle money responsibly, and who has enough to feel secure while still striving for growth. Summary: the path to feeling rich. We've journeyed through the hidden psychology that determines whether you feel wealthy, regardless of how much money you actually have. Let's synthesize what we've discovered and map out a path forward. The central insight is this: Feeling rich is not primarily about money. It's about psychology. Your sense of wealth is determined by the stories you tell yourself, the comparisons you make, and the expectations you hold. We've seen how hedonic adaptation ensures that any improvement in your financial circumstances will eventually feel normal. Your brain is designed to adapt to positive changes, which means that earning more money provides only temporary satisfaction before becoming your new baseline. We've explored how social comparison shapes your perception of wealth more than your actual bank balance. Your reference group, the people you compare yourself to, determines whether you feel rich or poor, regardless of your objective financial situation. We've examined how your financial set point, formed in childhood, creates an internal thermostat that regulates how much wealth feels appropriate for someone like you. When your circumstances exceed this set point, you experience discomfort that can lead to self-sabotage. We've discussed how lifestyle inflation can absorb any increase in income, leaving you feeling no wealthier despite earning significantly more. The moving target of enough ensures that satisfaction remains perpetually just out of reach. And we've uncovered the wealth perception paradox, how the very mindset that helps you build wealth can prevent you from ever feeling wealthy. Understanding these mechanisms is liberating because it reveals that your financial dissatisfaction isn't a character flaw or evidence that you need to earn more money. It's simply the predictable result of psychological processes that can be understood and adjusted. So, what's the path forward? First, become conscious of your money story. What beliefs about wealth and worthiness are operating below the surface of your awareness? Where did these beliefs come from? Do they serve your current goals and circumstances, or are they holding you back? Second, choose your reference points deliberately. Instead of automatically comparing yourself to the most successful people in your field, occasionally consider how your situation compares to previous generations, to global averages, or to your own past self. Third, define enough in concrete terms. What does financial security actually look like for you? What would allow you to feel comfortable taking some risks or enjoying some luxuries? Having specific targets makes it possible to recognize when you've achieved sufficiency. Fourth, practice gratitude for what you already have while still working toward what you want. This isn't about settling for less or abandoning ambition. It's about finding satisfaction in the present while building toward the future. Fifth, make conscious decisions about lifestyle inflation. When your income increases, decide deliberately how much of that increase to save, how much to invest, and how much to use for lifestyle upgrades. Don't let your spending expand automatically to fill your income. Sixth, adjust your financial mindset as your circumstances change. The scarcity mindset that serves you well when building wealth may need to evolve into a more balanced approach once you've achieved basic security. Finally, remember that wealth is ultimately about freedom. The freedom to make choices based on your values rather than your fears. The freedom to be generous with yourself and others. The freedom to take calculated risks in pursuit of meaningful goals. This freedom isn't dependent on having a specific amount of money. It's dependent on having a healthy relationship with whatever money you do have. The goal isn't to convince yourself that you're wealthy when you're not, or to stop striving for financial growth. The goal is to develop the psychological skills that allow you to feel genuinely abundant at every stage of your financial journey. When you understand the mechanisms that govern wealth perception, you can begin to feel rich, not because you have more money, but because you've learned to see the money you have through clearer eyes. This shift in perspective doesn't happen overnight. Like any meaningful change, it requires patience, practice, and self-compassion. But it's perhaps the most valuable financial skill you can develop. The ability to feel wealthy regardless of your circumstances. Because in the end, feeling rich isn't about having enough money. It's about knowing that you are enough, exactly as you are, right now. Otron. As we reach the end of our exploration, take a moment to notice what's shifted in your awareness. The same bank balance you had 48 minutes ago might feel different now that you understand the psychological forces that shape your perception of it. The insights we've shared today aren't just intellectual concepts. They're practical tools for transforming your relationship with money from one of scarcity and anxiety to one of abundance and peace. Remember, the gentle frequencies woven throughout this audio have been working on your subconscious mind, helping to reprogram old patterns and install new, more empowering beliefs about wealth and worthiness. Your journey toward feeling genuinely rich begins with the understanding that wealth is as much about psychology as it is about money. Armed with this knowledge, you have the power to step off the hedonic treadmill, escape the comparison trap, and finally experience the abundance that has been available to you all along. The path to feeling rich isn't about earning more. It's about seeing more clearly.